today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Wardrobe provided by Bahari Bahamas. Visit shopbahari.com. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So this show today is going to be a little bit controversial, to say the least. But I thought it was important to have this conversation because this doesn't only affect sports, but I think this opens the door to other arenas as well. And so I am calling the show today Stacked Odds: Transgender versus Naturally Born Women in Sports. Stacked odds. And the premise of this show today is whether or not there's a big debate going on now, especially with the Olympics on the horizon. There's this debate as to whether or not people who have transitioned, born male, and then decide that they are a female and transition into this role of female, and then decide that they should be allowed to compete against women who were naturally born female. And, it's causing a problem because clearly, particularly those who decided to transition after puberty, after they done gained all the muscles and the bigger heart and all them kind of things, what made them make them physically stronger, now they winning up everything. And naturally born women who have been working hard to improve themselves in their roles don't stand a chance. So on the one hand, you have the transgender community saying it's not right for you to discriminate against a person that is a transgender, that they should have a right to compete alongside women because they are women. And on the other side, you have the naturally born women who are saying, man, y'all got to be joking. Y'all expecting me to compete against, for all intents and purposes, a male, even though they identifying as something else. Their body is saying they are male. And you expect that to be fair? So this is the conversation we are having today. And like I said, I thought it was important to have this conversation. Rochelle Dean, who is the guest on the show today, she contacted me and said, Michelle, would you be interested in discussing this? And I thought, wow, that's a great idea, Rochelle. This is a great topic to cover because this affects other areas of life as well, not just sports, but sports is under the spotlight right now. Yeah. And so we're coming from a perspective of a sports conversation, but this has wider ramifications as well. So Rochelle is the country contact for the Women Human Rights Campaign Association. So she's Women Human Rights Campaign Bahamas. She's the country contact. And she's going to be speaking on behalf of that organization today. Rochelle, welcome to GPS.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning.
So this thing has snowballed into a huge issue, not just in the Western, not just in the United States, but it's happening in Canada and Australia and all over the world now. This conversation is beefing up because, well, Olympics is right around the corner. And now there's a question as to whether or not it is fair to have these transgender women compete against naturally born women in the Olympics. So tell me about the work that your organization has been doing towards this end.
Well, Michelle, the Women Human Rights Campaign is a group of women across the globe dedicated to protecting women's sex-based rights. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that we are advocating for women based on sex versus gender.
What's the difference?
The difference is gender, of course, according to the World Health Organization, is as well as CEDAW, is defined as behaviors, mannerisms, and what is acceptable to society.
That's what gender is.
Gender is, yeah. And of course, we know sex is biological. And so that's the difference. You can't change your sex. That's the idea. That's the basis of it, even though you have people that are transitioning. So sex is fundamentally what it is. It's legal. And that's kind of what the Declaration stands on, the idea that you are who you are based on your sex when you were born.
Okay. So what kind of work has your organization been doing with regard to this issue, specifically as it relates to sports?
Well, right now, it's very controversial because of the Olympics is coming up.
Yes.
And one of the things that's been very big across the states as well as other countries is that transgender women have wanted to compete in women's sports, and they have been. What's been happening is they have been breaking records and they have been, securing positions and medals, medaling, and winning against women who are biologically born female. And so the idea is that, not even the idea, the fact is that that's unfair. And there's lots of women who have actually gone to court for this in terms of their civil rights being violated. And we've seen where right now the U.S. is passing laws straight across every single state to ban transgender women from competing with women. It's still a question of whether it is fair in terms of human rights. And of course, WHRC has a declaration, and that declaration is based on CEDAW. And if you know the basis of CEDAW, which is the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, there is it is a fact that while CEDAW says that they do agree with non-discriminatory actions or acts against individuals on the basis of violence, gender-based violence, it still protects the rights of women. And so there are lots of conventions, and I think it all goes back to interpretation, how people view it. And we know that the transgender community has kind of said that, their human rights are being violated, and that's not the case. And so there has to be some clarity there, because their human rights are not being violated. You are a human when you are born. And so to have that be the basis of them wanting to compete in women's sports is certainly unfair, especially when you look at anatomy. And I think for the most part, we have seen where in terms of for inclusion, we've seen that the Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, has been very, have actually included the transgender community in terms of having them compete, but the basis of them competing is still a bit unfair. So we are advocating for that policy also to be changed. And they actually have said that they will review it, but they won't review it until after Tokyo.
So what is supposed to happen in this so you're trying to tell me then that in this upcoming Olympics they will be competing alongside women who are naturally born female?
Right now, they actually do have a transgender who will be competing. He is Gavin Hubbard, but he actually changed his name to Laurel Hubbard. So he will be competing as a weightlifter representing New Zealand.
Wow. All right. I found a couple of clips that are relative to this discussion today. Let's go to clip number 1, and this sort of will lay the foundation for both sides of the debate. Let's go to clip number 1.
Rachel Mckinnon is getting set to compete in one of her first races of the season. A small crowd of spectators has gathered just outside of Atlanta to cheer on some of the local cyclists.
Rachel Mckinnon winding up now.
No one appears too concerned with Mckinnon during her time trial, but in the past she's found herself at the center of a political firestorm. She's transgender, and last year she won a world championship for her age group, racing against women.
Mckinnon takes it into world champion, oh Canada.
The world championship win was a little historic, and it's completely surreal that I'm that person. Like, I'm just some girl from Victoria, BC, who just wanted to race her bike.
Normally, the win would have attracted very little media attention, but not this time.
A Canadian transgender athlete is facing a backlash after winning the Cycling World Championship. Rachel Mckinnon, who was born male...
She says the reaction online was overwhelming.
A lot of support, but good goddess, the amount of backlash was a new level for me. I estimated it was about 3,000 to 1 negative and generally very hateful comments to positive ones.
Mckinnon is a fiercely outspoken transgender activist and academic. And she's become a central part of the roiling debate around rules, rights, and biology in elite sport. At issue just how to include trans women in competition.
The idea that we need to protect women's or female sport from other women and females is itself inherently discriminatory. No testosterone policy will ever work. They should respect an athlete's legally recognized sex or gender.
Mckinnon publicly posted her testosterone levels online to show just how low they are, nearly indetectable. She believes trans athletes shouldn't be forced to take hormone therapy at all. That's a stark contrast to the type of guidelines many sporting federations, including the International Olympic Committee, have in place. Before, if a transgender athlete wanted to compete in the Olympics, they had to have sex reassignment surgery, but those rules changed in 2016. They now focus on testosterone levels. There are no restrictions if someone transitions to a man, but if they transition to a woman, they need to take hormone therapy for at least a year in order to be eligible to compete.
Lift, 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 lift. Pick up the big toe. 1, 2, 3, 4.
This isn't just an issue limited to the highest levels of sport like the Olympics.
Jump, float, beautiful.
But it's permeated throughout different levels of competition.
2, 3, 4.
Linda Blade is a coach and president of Athletics Alberta. She believes it isn't right to have trans women compete in female categories and instead should be in an open division.
I think a lot of women worldwide feel that's blatantly unfair, because if a person has gone through puberty with the full sort of testosterone levels that make them taller and their lungs bigger and their muscles bigger and their frame size larger, they have just incredible advantage. It doesn't matter that you take down their testosterone for 1 year.
She says competitive sports already separate people based on their body type. For instance, she says flyweight boxers don't compete against heavyweights. In the U.S., trans athletes have sparked a lot of debate. In Connecticut, some parents started a petition demanding a rule change after 2 trans athletes started winning girls' high school sprint races. Online, the conversation has turned particularly toxic, with insults thrown from all sides. Blade says many are afraid to speak up and share their opinions.
Everybody's made to feel like a bigot if they say something wrong, and then the mob comes after you, the social media mob. I feel like we need to really have this conversation in a safe way, where we're all able to say what we want to say without just assuming that we all hate the other side.
Okay, so for the record, for those of you who may be watching from outside of the Bahamas, generally speaking, the Bahamas is not so hung up on being politically correct as some other territories are. So much of the conversation around this kind of thing may come across as bigoted, but I just want to say that this is not the intention of this show to be bigoted in any way. I just think that this is a very serious conversation that needs to be had, because the ramifications go way beyond sports. It's now, sports is what is being focused on, but this goes way beyond sports, because the question that has to be asked is, what makes a woman a woman? What makes a man a man? And if you're telling me that I can be born male, and for whatever reason, I decide that I'm really a woman trapped in this male body, but I go through puberty, I gain all the muscular strength and all the other things that make my body male, and then I start to transition, and I get the hormone therapy, I get the testosterone reduction, whatever, but I still have all these muscles. I still have a larger heart. I still have, bigger lungs. So how is that okay for you to stand next to me, who was born female, and have a smaller frame, smaller muscles, smaller heart, clearly less strength? How is that fair for you to stand next to me and say, you can't tell me I shouldn't be here because I'm a woman just like you? Are we living in La La Land? What are your thoughts on this, Rochelle? What are your personal views on this?
Well, my personal view is that, and as much as, when we read CEDAW, it's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
My personal view, however, is that, and in CEDAW, I just want to make it clear that CEDAW says that we should be sensitized to gender-based violence.
Right.
We should.
Nobody's encouraging that.
Yeah, no one is encouraging that. And that's clear in that convention. But my personal view is that we should be desensitized to gender. Your gender is not anyone's business. If you wish to dress like a female, if you want to behave like a female, and vice versa, that's your business. I don't think that that's something that needs to be something that we make a policy or we kind of politicize either. And so I think what we have done is we have set ourselves up to kind of continue to have these policies made on the basis of gender, and they have really affected our society. I really believe that there is no male who should compete with a woman. The anatomy is just what it is. And we know that the Olympic Committee, I think their basis was based on, the basis of their policy was biology, and that then transitioned, it gave segue to modern science versus them considering anatomy. So I really don't think that they did consider anatomy when they did make those policies. And, now they're now looking at it and saying, maybe we should look at this again and rethink, the policies and the decisions that we have made in terms of allowing these individuals to compete. And for me, I don't think that it's not mean spirited, because people love to say that it's mean regarding social justice. It's not. There has to be a level of fairness, and women have to feel safe. One of the other conventions speaks to, and this is from the civil rights perspective, speaks to women feeling safe and having the opportunity to be able to freely, do certain things within the society and not feel as though that they are being threatened. And so I think that if women believe that they should not have to compete with transgenders, then they shouldn't, and vice versa. I think that if men feel like, if a transgender woman decided to become a male and they didn't want to compete with women, it should be the same, and that speaks to what CEDAW is about. It's about equality, and that's the level of equality. So my personal view, of course, goes back to the fact that I do think that we should be desensitized to gender. And I also, I don't believe that women, transgender men, should compete with women just because of the anatomy, just because of anatomy. And if, general science people should know this. So I definitely think that we have dropped the ball here. And it takes us being able to speak to this and being able to have an opinion. We had the opportunity to speak at CSW 65 in March, and I was given the task of speaking on Article 4 of the Declaration for WHRC, which was on freedom of opinion and expression. And so it's very important that people are able to express how they feel, because, it's kind of where the narrative is one-sided, where people who don't agree with it are made to feel as though they are mean-spirited and evil and oh, they're not accepting, and that's not the case. If you have transgenders who are going to say accept what we are, then they need to accept that there are people who don't agree with it, and so it has to be a level playing field.
This bullying thing only goes one way, They're quick to call people bigots and, you're bullying, but they bully other people who don't agree with their position all the time. Here's the thing. And I've had this conversation with people long before we went in, before the sports thing became an issue. And my thing is this. What makes me a woman is more than my genitalia. To me, if I could just simply go on and stick on some body parts, and I know it's more complicated than that, but I'm just being, it's only a 2-hour show. We don't have time to play around. If I could just go on and stick on body parts to make me whatever I feel like I should be, where does it end? Can I wake up tomorrow and decide, and this may sound ridiculous, but it's a question. Can I wake up tomorrow and decide that I'm a unicorn and stick a horn on my forehead and that makes me a unicorn? Like, where do we draw the line? And let me put it this way. Again, this may sound ridiculous, but in essence, this is what we're saying. I could wake up tomorrow and decide that I identify as a greyhound. I'm now a greyhound because that's how I identify. And so if I go to the racetrack, right, and I go line up next to the greyhounds, and when the gate flings open, I break off running because I think I'm a greyhound. I'm identifying as a greyhound. Y'all will quickly call the bus for me. I wouldn't make it around the track. Somebody could call the bus for me, Delton. And they could say, Michelle gone. She was sniffing some glue. She gone. But yet we are accommodating this. And I'm not trying to be insensitive because I know that this is a complicated issue. Where do you draw the line? How is it fair to me as a woman that you have decided that you're a woman, but you bring in your male body with you for all intents and purposes? Now, you could change a couple body parts here and there, but you still have an advantage. How is that fair?
And I want to kind of bring it all home for you, Michelle. It's interesting that you made that analogy because in the Bahamas, you find that, and I don't know if it's for developing nations across the board,
right?
But you find that if you were to speak out, if you were to say something that was controversial or contrary to what is considered the norm, people will call you crazy. But however, if you wanted to change your sex, if you wanted to be a transgender, which is gender dysphoria, it's acceptable. That is socially the weirdest, most dangerous precedent that we have set. And not only have we done that from that perspective, we're also saying that if your sex isn't the basis of anything, then that means that there is no rule of law. So this does not only impact somebody's ability to want to be somebody else, but this actually impacts society as a whole, what we consider to be acceptable, and how we respond to that. So I find that to be the most interesting thing, especially coming from a developing nation, because we, as much as we're not censored, we have been taught that if you were to say something that was considered perhaps in anger or something that you said when you're upset, then you're considered to be crazy. I find that very, very peculiar. But these are the standards that we have set. And I don't want to deviate too much off of the conversation, but I think that speaks volumes. And so one of the things that we were very big on for the Bahamas during CSW 65 was to speak about freedom of opinion and expression. We are free to say and express how we feel about this. And one of the things that was very, very I think it gave so many people hope was the idea that the International Olympic Committee also set policies in place where athletes could express how they felt. And so, and they want them to. And so those policies and those changes are also going to be set in place so that if they don't agree with this, they have the right to say.
Right. Okay. Wow. There's a lot more ground to cover here. I have a couple more clips I want to play. And then there's also the question, I mean, today we're talking specifically about transgender, but there's also the question about people who are intersex. And what that means and what happens to that person. Boy, this is so complicated. Stay with us, y'all. This is GPS, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Glory 93.9 FM, the people's favorite gospel station.
Located on Carmichael Road, Divine Designs Hair Boutique is a haven for women and men looking for professional beauty services. Our state-of-the-art and contemporary equipment creates a relaxing ambiance for you to enjoy while we cater to you. Need a hairstylist? We cater to all types and textures of hair for care and styling. We even have a barber on duty. Need a nail tech? Our technicians provide a range of nail services, including the latest trends. Unwind in one of our massage chairs while you get your pedicure. With our reasonable rates, friendly staff, and over 20 years of experience, you will be in great hands. Call us at 823-1669 or 698-1025 to schedule your appointment. Want to be pampered? Want to be slayed? Let Divine Designs make your day.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Youngevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. VTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and today we are talking about transgender versus naturally born females when it comes to sports. I'm calling this show Stacked Odds, and my guest today is Rochelle Dean, and Rochelle is the country contact for, Rochelle, give me the name of your organization again.
Women Human Rights Campaign.
Women Human Rights Campaign. And so we're talking about this today because that organization has been really lobbying for fairness as it relates to not allowing transgenders to compete against naturally born females when it comes to elite sports. So let me read a couple of your comments, and then we are going to go back to our discussion. So Desiree says, why can't we, I'm waiting for it to come up. I don't know if it's come up, but you can see it, guys. It has? Okay. For some reason, this is running slow here. So Desiree says, why, it's not coming up for me. She says, why, it's something along the lines of, why can't they have their own race? A race specifically for them. Well, the challenge with that is when it comes to the elite sports like the Olympics, there aren't sufficient persons who fall in that category that would allow for there to be a complete category by itself. And so this is the reason why that is not happening. Why they can't have a division of their own, in other words, at the Olympic level. And so that is why that is not something that can happen. Now, it's frozen on my end, so if you could take the comment down from where you are, Delton, because I can't, this is frozen on my end. So yeah, that is the problem. The fact that there aren't sufficient transgenders to have a complete category within its own. Now, there's been a lot of research is going into this nowadays. So it's not just a matter of your opinion versus my opinion, or this athlete saying it's not fair compared to another athlete saying it's not fair, or it is fair. But okay, it's now unfrozen. But nowadays there's a lot of debate going on, and as a result of that, research has begun to look more deeply into this. Let's go to clip number 2, which is talking about the ongoing research.
Everything you got, here's where it counts. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Inside this sports lab, Jillian Bearden is being tested.
Awesome part of the test.
Her oxygen intake is measured and her blood is taken.
Just hang with it. Stay focused.
She's part of a research study and is an ideal candidate because she was tested before she transitioned, so there's baseline data. Overall, her power is down by more than 11%.
You're doing all of this testing and you're making the data available for research. Like, why is that important for you to have that information out there?
It gives me a safe place in the women I compete with, knowing that I'm legit, let's say. You know, there's no questions that when I'm on that podium that I'm on there because of any other reason than I'm an athlete and I train my ass off every single day.
Bearden is a road racer and recently won a women's state championship. She believes trans athletes should be required to take hormone therapy and get their testosterone levels tested, because her performance data shows just what kind of difference it can make.
I do feel that if you want to compete in the women's field, that you have to comply with the rules that are out currently right now.
Most women's testosterone levels are below 3 nanomoles a liter. The rules require that trans women keep their levels below 10 nanomoles, but that's expected to change before the next Olympics and be cut to 5.
That's it, Julie. Come on. This is it.
Bearden is part of a small study, but very little research has been done in this area. Canadian Joanna Harper is hoping to change that. As a trans athlete and a scientist, Harper has unique insight. She started her transition in 2004.
Within 9 months of hormone therapy, I was running 12% slower. And that's the difference between serious male distance runners and serious female distance runners.
As a long-distance runner, the gap was shocking, but as a medical physicist, intriguing. So she set out to track trans athletes, including Bearden. Harper became an advisor to the IOC, and this fall will help lead a much larger study at a university in the UK. She says there are still gaps around understanding how athletes are affected by gender transition. Once someone goes through puberty, how do their muscles and cardiovascular systems respond to the drugs?
Why do you think this is something that the sports community needs to deal with right now?
So it would be very, very easy for a few individuals with full male athletic capability to completely swamp the women, and we saw that in the Rio Olympics.
Semenya now taking the lead, looking fresh and powerful.
By that she means the 800-meter final.
It'll be Semenya all by herself.
South African runner Caster Semenya took gold. She, along with the silver and bronze medalists, all have unusually high levels of testosterone. While the context around trans and intersex athletes is very different, it's all become part of this larger, often contentious discussion around what is a simple advantage and what is unfair. And Harper has often found herself right in the middle of it.
All I can do is continue to push on and try to be rational and reasonable and hopefully get more science and more data. But yeah, it's hard when things are so divided and so heated.
And often public and very personal. Rachel Mckinnon said she had to ask 4 people to flag the hateful content that was coming in on her Twitter feed.
These fears that trans women are a threat to women's sport are irrational fears of trans women, which is the dictionary definition of transphobia. And we need to call it what it is.
Mckinnon may be one of the most vocal activists in this entire debate, but tonight at this race, she was quieter, even appearing apprehensive. She chose to race alongside the men in one event because they would push her.
Blazing away from the field.
She ended up finishing well back.
1, 2, 3. There we go.
Afterwards, though, it was the women who wanted to meet her.
I hope that by the time an athlete who's trans gets in the Olympics, that we celebrate that and not revisit this debate over again, whether it's fair or not.
But that might be wishful thinking. Right now, this issue remains very divisive. And as the next Olympics get closer, it's possible the debate could get even louder.
Okay. So prior to the break, I mentioned that we would also sort of bring into this conversation the intersex athletes as well. Different from transgenders, because transgender athletes were born male or female and decide that they are going to transition to become the opposite sex. Whereas intersex athletes like Caster Semenya from South Africa were born with both male and female genitalia. And, you know, for Caster, she for a long time didn't even know that she had male, because her testes were inside her body. And it wasn't until some medical procedure that they discovered it. And this is often the case. But every single race that Castor runs in, there's her way out there to the finish line, and then everybody else comes in afterwards, because she clearly has more of the male, aspects in her body than female. If you look at her, she looks like a man. She's built like a man. She has the strength. So it is impossible for any naturally born female to beat her. And even in the race that we showed, that was showed in that clip, the other two who came first and second also had high levels of testosterone and also looked like men. So whereas I feel for her and people like her who this isn't something that they chose to do. This is just what happened. This is how they, were created. I still say, though, that cannot be fair to a naturally born female who does not have that edge, that advantage of having all of that strength because of the way that they were born. And, taking this back to the question of the transgender, you could sit up and say to me as much as you want, oh, this is transphobia. That is garbage. Because common sense is still common sense, and 1 and 1 still make 2. And if you coming into this race clearly advantaged because you were built like the boy that you were born to be, how is that phobia when I say, oh, hold on now, how is this fair? Now, this conversation has extended beyond sports. And I know, Rochelle, that during the break, we were talking about how far this has gone as it relates to medical schools. So tell me what is happening, how far this has gone.
Well, of course, we know in order for transgenders to have a transition, they would have to, there would have to be medication, there would have to be some level of research done. So we have lots of medical schools that have, they make way for this modern science. But we have seen where a few of them have actually said that they were going to change their policies in terms of who they would give medical treatment to. And so we know that one of the biggest things that WHRC advocates for is for children and for the rights of children as it relates to sex. And so one of the things that was very important to us, and I want to be a bit specific, so we reaffirm the need to end violence against women and girls and to protect the rights of children. Mm-hmm. So we want to protect children from this. And we know that there are lots of individuals who now have their children identifying with gender, which is utterly ridiculous. A child cannot identify with any particular gender other than, how they were born. And so clearly that's being fed to them by whomever. And, or via school, because you have some schools that actually have this in their educational curriculums. So what these medical schools have said is that they are actually reversing their policies, that they won't be, facilitating giving any type of puberty blockers or anything to young children until they are of legal age. And for us, that's a level of fairness, because if a child decides that, at 4, if a child came to me and said to me, I want to be a boy and she's a girl, I would, do my endeavor best to make sure that they understood their sex and that they are a girl. And gender dysphoria has to be treated. And I really think that our gender units or our, the government, there's some responsibility for the government, because if you have a gender unit or ministry, they are supposed to address gender dysphoria. So they're supposed to address children who say that, I feel like I'm somebody else in the inside. That has to be addressed. That is considered a form of mental illness. And so that's where the treatment comes in for that child to now be able to accept who they are. And that's what we should be doing. But what we are doing is we are making gender some social construct and having these and we're trying to make people accept it versus gender units and ministries across the border, across the world, who should be addressing the dysphoria. So for me, I think what's happened in terms of these medical schools, it's huge, and it's very important to making sure that people become responsible, especially governments, especially institutions, because this is also institutional. They should be making sure that children are protected. And a child who says that I feel like I am this person versus who I was born, they should definitely be the number one persons who would be treated for gender dysphoria. So I question, what are we doing as a world relative to this matter?
I saw an interview recently when they were discussing exactly that in terms of how people relate to children who say, I want to be a boy, I want to be a girl. And this one particular person said she had a niece. And so one day the niece comes home and the niece says, I want to be a boy. So she said, as opposed to running and, saying, okay, you're a boy and we're going to treat you as a boy, they had a conversation with the kid. Why do you want to be a boy? And then the little girl goes on to explain, because boys get to do this and boys get to do that and boys get to climb trees and boys get to. So she just wanted to be free. She wanted to have the same rights to express her, to have fun, I guess, in her mind, that boys don't seem to be limited. Correct. Because, society puts a lot of limits on girls. So in her mind, I want to be a boy because they don't have the limitations that y'all are putting on me. It doesn't mean that she feels, oh, I was, I was born in the wrong body. So the point that I'm trying to make is they had a conversation with this child. And after having a conversation with the child, they understood why she said she wanted to be a boy. It was more about freedoms than not identifying with her own gender. And, we don't allow children to make any other major decisions about their lives at 3 and 4 and 5. So why is this different? Why is this different? You have to ask whether or not this has anything to do with science or more so politics, more so some kind of agenda. And listen, I'm not saying you have to agree with me. And if you are a person who does not agree with what is being said here, you are free to call in. The telephone number to call is 828-3543, 828-3543, or the text line is 828-2543, 828-2543, or you can put a comment here on Facebook. But we don't allow children that young to make any other life-altering decisions because we say, oh, that's just a child. So how is this different? How is this different? These are the kinds of questions that we need to be asking. What is really going on here? Kenley says, in a comment on Facebook, boy, this is really going slow today, guys. I'm trying to get it to come up and it's not coming up. Okay, it says, seems like there are no more rules. It's just what anyone feels. This nonsense of there should be no gender is crazy. Where will this end? I'm not sure. Did that make it to the screen? It did. Okay, now it's come up. That made it to the screen. Where will this end? Good question. And Oswald says, Miss Malcolm, it's all a slap in God's face. This transgender confusion is nothing other than people who are hell-bent on controlling the creation narrative. All right. Let's see. We're going to go to... let's see. Siobhan says, morning all, just catching part of your show. What we need in this country is to unlearn some stuff and to evolve in our mindset. We must remember that we don't live in an inclusive society. While we have our beliefs, it's important to embrace change. All right, Siobhan. So what are your thoughts as it relates to that? Should we just embrace change?
I think when it comes to CEDAW, and I want to make this clear, because I think that people assume that anti means that you're against evolution or the development of anything. CEDAW clarifies and makes it clear that it is the framework for the protection of women. However, it gives segue to the idea that there are going to be new developments in terms of the social constructs of where we go in terms of discrimination and how we protect women. So it's very important that the evolution of society, which is driven socially by what we deem acceptable, be sex-based. In terms of which is still the basis of the Convention of CEDAW. So this would mean that an identical or a neutral treatment of women, and this is something that's stated in the Declaration, might constitute discrimination against women if such treatment resulted in or had the effect of women being denied the exercise of a right because there was no recognition of the pre-existing gender-based disadvantage and inequality that women face. So right now, as we have it, we have transgenders who want the world to be gender neutral. When you look at safe spaces, and President Biden, and I'm going to speak to this just briefly, Joe Biden just passed an executive order to allow transgenders to have access to safe spaces that are for women. So really and truly, we're setting up our society and our world to be gender neutral. And if the world is gender neutral, then women are being discriminated against according to this Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And that is very important, and people need to be aware of that.
So explain how women are being discriminated against under those circumstances.
Well, if we have a gender neutral society, then there is clearly a pre-existing gender-based disadvantage. So what that means is that there, as it stands, we are disadvantaged because there are no spaces for women, neither are there spaces for men. So we are being discriminated against because now we're being forced to have gender neutral spaces. And, one of the things that was so interesting the other day, the ladies and I for WHRC, who are academics, lawyers, straight across all over the world, we discussed the World Economic Forum, where they also have, made segue for the transition of gender neutral spaces. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we discussed was the economics behind it, the fact that that's ridiculous, utterly, and if we talk about what's gender neutral, your home is gender neutral because everybody uses the bathroom, right, correct? Right. That's and that's distinctly family oriented, and so if we're gonna do that, then we all should be living some form of rationality of what is the family, and we don't do that. When we come out of our homes, it's a different kind of arena. Right. So to kind of put people in that position where everybody's using the same restrooms, that is utterly ridiculous. And if we look at the economics behind it as well, it also doesn't make sense because when people have bathrooms for their businesses, they usually have a bathroom, a multi-purpose bathroom. So it's usually about 4 different stalls for people to use the restroom. Mm-hmm. There is no way that people are going to, restaurants and businesses are going to have a bathroom for one, in terms of just one singular bathroom. Mm-hmm. And while you do have some people that do have one singular bathroom, that's very much so, I think, for the most part, it's impractical, because everybody usually prefers to have 2 and say this one is for the male and this one is for the women. Mm-hmm. So that is also going to become very, very controversial. So for me, the money, it doesn't make sense in terms of from an economic standpoint. So It's interesting that the World Economic Forum would place that in their policies. And of course, it's been recommended. So we'll see what happens there, but there is clearly a disadvantage when spaces are now gender neutral. If spaces are gender neutral, then Joe Biden would have now been discriminating against women. And we all have been discriminating against ourselves because we have amalgamated women's rights along with human rights. And if we bring it now back home to the Bahamas, we're going to bring it back local. Recently, we know that the Bahamas government has decided that they are going to develop a human rights unit within the Attorney General's office to bring about the differentiation. So we know that the Department of Gender, I'm not sure what they're doing, but there should be a separation of the two.
Wow. Okay. This is deep. We have to take a break, y'all. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. And I'm also going to play a clip from 2 high school athletes that caused quite a stir nationally in the United States. Transgender athletes. We'll hear from them and their parents and why they think that they should be allowed to compete against naturally born girls. Stay with us. This is GPS. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Best dress, hats off, looking like I walked out of catalog. Everybody wanna know where I got it from. Catwalk, 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 boutique, where we make fashion statements. Catwalk, boutique, where we make fashion statements.
For the latest styles in women's clothing and accessories, visit Catwalk Boutique on Robinson Road East at the Helron Plaza. At Catwalk Boutique, we make fashion statements.
Looking for an extraordinary junior high school with caring, qualified staff and affordable tuition? Then come visit us at Elite School of Excellence, an affiliate of First Step Academy. ABECA-focused and Ministry of Education approved, we foster discipline, integrity, and wisdom while molding our students for success. Call us at 341-8846 or stop by First Step Academy Schools on Fire Trail and Soldy Roads for more information.
Executive Printers is your one-stop shop for all your branding and customization needs. Letterheads, envelopes, business cards, invoices, share and gift certificates, rubber stamps, vouchers, funeral programs, brochures, flyers, banners, and promotional items like mugs, water bottles, mouse pads, and key rings, all with personable service and great quality. No project is too small or too large. For great turnaround and competitive pricing, make an executive decision. Call us at 393-5011.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Youngevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guest today is Rochelle Dean, and we are talking about transgender versus naturally born women when it comes to things like sports. I'm calling this show Stacked Odds because, quite frankly, the odds are stacked in their favor. they're bigger, they're stronger, they have more muscle, they have, bigger hearts. So how do you tell me that it's okay for you to stand beside me at that starting line and we all have a fair chance? How is that possible? So that's what we're talking about today. So now I want to play one more clip. So these two high school athletes in the United States got national attention when parents started to complain, parents of naturally born female athletes started to complain that it was unfair for their daughters to have to compete against these two athletes. Let's go to that clip.
Terry Miller and Andrea Yearwood dominating the competition at the Girls Track and Field Championships in Connecticut earlier this month, coming in first and second place respectively. And while it was a state race, their wins are making national headlines, not because of what they did, but because of who they are, two transgender girls.
When was the first time that either of you found any kind of opposition to you participating on the girls' team?
I was expecting it, so every day I'll go home, search up Track and Field High School, Terry Miller.
Because you wanted to know what people were saying?
Yeah.
Some of those comments were harsh. Critics complaining that Andrea and Terry both have an unfair advantage since they were born boys.
At what point do you decide, actually, it's more appropriate for me to be on the girls' team and competing with other girls?
I decided that the summer before 9th grade.
They've both started hormone therapy and say that for the most part they've been welcomed by friends, family, coaches, and administrators with open arms. But there is some backlash from parents and students. 2 petitions were even started in an attempt to change the current rule of the state's governing body of interscholastic sports. The rule states that students are entitled to participate on a team based on their gender identity, how they identify.
The girls athletes are at the physical disadvantage compared to the transgender female.
Bianca Stanescu started one of those petitions after her daughter Selena lost to Andrea and Terry at a track meet in May.
They have naturally testosterone within their body that has been proven to give a physical advantage in sports.
The mom, who was unaware that the girls were already undergoing hormone therapy, has gotten a little over 100 signatures. Medical science tells us that estrogen hormone therapy does change the body, replacing some lean muscle with fat. But of course, everyone is different. Andrea's parents say what's most important to them is the well-being of their child.
Track is number 100 on my list of concerns as a father of a transgender daughter. I'm talking about raising a child for a life. And so is it fair that that child is excluded? Is it fair that that child doesn't feel like they have a place to belong?
It allows her to be who she wants to be, and I think that has a little bit more weight than just winning a medal.
The rules vary from state to state. In 7 states, including Texas, students must play on the team that matches their birth certificate, or have undergone surgery, or have had extended hormone therapy, while the NCAA requires the completion of 1 year of testosterone suppression. Medical research cannot really identify the line where a competitive advantage might exist for trans athletes of either gender.
What do you want to say to other transgender youth, young people, teens who are out there really struggling through this process?
Just follow your heart. Like, don't let other people determine what you do in life.
Let's just play devil's advocate for a moment and just imagine that you were both born girls and then all of a sudden you had 2 boys who identified as being girls and they said, hey, we're going to be on your team, and maybe now you're not performing as well because they are better.
I'm not going to discourage you or try to say, oh, it's not fair, and it would just push me to run faster. I'd be happy for them because they get to do what they want. They're happy, so then that should in turn make me happy. And they're brave. They're just different from everybody.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening on radio, you weren't able to see the video of the 2 athletes they just interviewed. I didn't see anything feminine on those 2 athletes at all.
Not at all.
They were 2, by all appearances, boys with long hair.
Clearly.
Built like boys. I mean, come on. Now, from the parental perspective, I'm just trying to raise my child to be happy. Okay, kudos to you. Is it fair that my child should not feel included? Well, I could say it's not fair for them to not feel included, but it sure ain't fair for your child to be included at the expense of everybody else.
Correct.
How is that fair? And these are the kinds of questions that we need to, because come on. I saw another interview as I was preparing for this show. And this female, this naturally born female athlete was saying that, it is very discouraging because no matter how hard you train, no matter everything that you do right, you know that you are going to that starting line
to lose,
fighting for second place at best, because it is impossible for you to win. And she was saying she had a conversation with her mother one day, and her mother was trying to encourage her and saying to her, make sure that you remember, to do this, and at the start, make sure you get a good start. And she said to her mother, Mom, there's nothing that I could do today that's going to help me win this race. And her mother said, well, why not? And she said, because we're running against boys today. And she was talking about there's nothing, there's no amount of training that I can do, no amount of technique that I can apply that will help me to win against these transgender athletes. It's impossible. How is that fair? How? And are you saying that we should sacrifice fairness for the majority of people? Because this is a minority community that we're speaking of, and we're talking about the transgender community. So are you saying that we should sacrifice fairness for the majority of people to make life fair for you?
That is utterly the oddest thing of this entire thing. Outside of the fact that I find it so amazing that transgenders will, God bless their souls, will have the audacity to kind of put themselves in the same bracket as individuals who have differences in sex development. So a transgender is not a Caster Semenya or a Annette Nagisa from Uganda. They are not those individuals. These are individuals who are normal individuals who decide that they want to have a sex change. And so they should not be even categorized with those individuals, because those individuals are considered intersex. And we know that even with Annette Nagisa, after she would have done what she needed to do in terms of being able to compete, because she also had genitalia that was internal, she literally never performed the way she performed ever again. So we know that at the end of the day, these are individuals who have differences in terms of sex development. So a transgender should never even consider themselves to be in the same bracket. That within itself is just completely, utterly the most amazing part of this entire thing. Outside of the fact that, the IOC speaks on the fact that they are very big on maintaining the integrity of competition from manipulation for purely profit-oriented goals of commercial sport providers and investors. So I do believe that there will be social repercussions in terms of allowing this inclusion, without considering anatomy. Because at this level, you are going to produce people who are athletes who have apathy, apathetic athletes, and they will contribute to match fixing and betting. And, I think that will definitely erode the social mission of what the Olympics is all about. And so even with speaking to the National Olympic Committee here in the Bahamas, they have stated that, they comply with the International Olympic Committee in terms of the identification of intersex. So I think that's also something that the International Olympic Committee is going to have to address in terms of how they consider or the policies that they have set in place as it relates to, how it will affect, the sportsmanship of women, whether or not they will become apathetic athletes, I don't care, because it's unfair. And so they have to think about that. If you're going to talk about social If you're going to look at social inclusion and make biology a social construct, then certainly you have to look at the fact of what really is the social repercussions in terms of athletic apathy. So I think that's definitely something that they're going to have to consider.
Okay, I am not sure. On my end, it crashed. So are we still on? Okay, we're still on. Okay. Okay, so I can't see your comments or anything like that until I get this sorted out. So, all right. So Rochelle, then what from CEDAW's perspective, what especially on the local level here in the Bahamas, what kind of messaging are you working to what kind of campaign are you trying to create to ensure that the rights of women are protected? What is happening on that front?
First of all, I think it's so important to frame the narrative. And that's one of the things that's been very important in terms of for the Bahamas, because, the Bahamas, this isn't as large, as huge as it would be in other countries. So we don't have, a huge influx of transgenders, or not that we are aware of. And with the recent, the Caribbean Institute of Women in Leadership was actually just chartered here in the Bahamas. And one of the things that they are about is transformational leadership. So they are inclusive of the LGBTQ community. That's inclusive of transgenders.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we have to do is we have to frame the narrative, because I think from a social media perspective, we have not had any campaigns that really focused or campaigned for women's rights. And a part of that is bringing clarity to what CEDAW, why women need to protect it, how they are protected, and why CEDAW is in place. One of the things that is very big is the idea that CEDAW specifically speaks to gender-based violence.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, and they also speak to education in terms of allowing for tolerance of stereotypes as it relates to or stereotypical behavior as it relates to transgenders.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important. We're not saying, we hate transgenders. We don't want them to be in society, because that would be utterly ridiculous. What we are saying is that women's rights should be protected, and those rights should be protected on the basis of your sex versus on your gender. And CEDAW clearly has that specifically laid out for everybody to see. So if everybody reads the declaration, and I read it, you would have clarity as it relates to that. Also, one of the recommendations that the CEDAW committee has locally for the Bahamas is for a campaign like Women's Human Rights Campaign,
Mm-hmm.
which needs to continue to give public education relative to matters of these sorts. And of course, we know that WHRC is a very developed campaign, and that's one of the bases of CEDAW. CEDAW gives segue again to campaigns of this sort, actually, that is going to further the development and evolution of women and protecting women.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to go to a couple of the comments from our Facebook viewers. Let's see. Bertha says, man always trying to undo what God has already done. When God has finished his work, he said it was all good. All right. Benjamin Abraham says the Bible is gender neutral. I know what you mean by that, Benjamin. What Bible you was reading?
Mm-hmm.
You need to explain that, please. Maybe you read another one what I reading. Kenley says, one kind of man, to be specific, they just always bring death, destruction, and deviance. Okay. Lily says, good morning to everyone. God created man and woman in his own image, and therefore any other thing that wants to recreate to call it good is ungodly and goes against the will of God. All right. Let's see. Let's scroll down. Y'all got a lot of comments, y'all. I'm going to try to get to as many of them as I can. Romel says, Jesus Christ say, don't be like the world. The world is confused, and thy doctrine living in the days okay, that's a little confusing, that comment. I know what you're trying to say there. Okay, Siobhan says, I think our leaders need to ensure that they read the fine print when signing on and exploring these international organizations, and if there are any decisions to be made, ensure the public the general public is involved in these decisions. What are your thoughts on that? That's an interesting perspective, Rochelle, that we need to be careful what kind of international agreements we sign on to. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that. I think that we've been in a place where we have learned to comply, and that's one of the reasons why Bahamas has been, the land where we flourished. We did well because we just do what, the international community does. I think that we should be allowed the opportunity to, challenge things that would come about, but I don't think that that's not the responsibility of the international community. That has to do with the Bahamas. We at a national level have to be able to place people at the table who are going to say, I don't agree with this. Let's challenge this, or let's ask them what they mean by this. That's so important. One of the things that I asked the National Olympic Committee was, what is your views? And, they did say, we comply with the International Olympic Committee, while there are just 20% female on that committee. They did say that they 100% support women. And it was really, them just complying with the Olympic Committee as it relates to DSD. But I think that we should challenge, we should ask questions. This is very important. And we've kind of developed a society where we just we roll with the punches, and we have a group think. One person controls the entire board or controls the entire group. And, that's one of the reasons why I think I am who I am. I don't roll with the punches. I have to ask, and I have to ask questions. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I have become involved with WHRC. I was actually winding down my civic duties. I think I've done what I needed to do in terms of public life. And, I had questions, and in having questions, they contacted me and they were like, we would love for you to be a panelist. And from there, this is where I find myself today. So I think it's so important to challenge. I don't think that you're going to find any country or any institution that's going to come and tell you, well, you're doing it wrong. They're gonna kind of be fine with you, going along with whatever it is they're going along with. It's going to have to be up to us at the local level to say, yeah, I'm going to challenge that. What do they mean by that? We don't necessarily agree with that. And that's a part of what the development of a nation is about.
Very good point. All right, let me go to a couple more comments. Carolyn says, there are some women born with extremely high levels of testosterone. The Olympic Committee wants them to take drugs to lower their natural levels. I forget what team, but there was an African female that they were trying to force to take drugs. I think she's talking about Semenya. This is all just crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let me try and get to a couple more of your comments. I'm using somebody else's laptop, and I always struggle trying to scroll down. Okay. Let's see. This one says, this is Lily. Lily says, you are absolutely correct, Michelle. Built like boys, wearing braids. These type of so-called transgender people are prompting our kids to change their identity. The enemy, Satan, will try any means to bring deception to destroy what God is against. All right. And we have one more comment. This one says, this is Rosetta. The sporting arena needs to suck it up and just offer a transgender games or race the same way they do for paraplegics. Anything otherwise puts other athletes at a disadvantage. That's a thought. What are your thoughts on perhaps creating specific games for transgender and intersex people? Do you think that that would be a fair solution?
I actually think that that's actually a good idea. So, that's probably something that they should look at it as well. I always say this, I'm advocating for women's sex-based rights. So I'm advocating for women.
Right.
But at the same time, I do think that transgenders deserve to, have a seat at the table. They have they have a right to challenge. They have a right to determine the direction of how they are included into society, because they are a part of society. And so if that means that they should petition for games, then why not? The transgender industry is huge, in the billions of dollars. It's kind of like big pharma. And so if if they decided to, have their own Olympics, why not? That's something to bring resolution. I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to feel comfortable. And if you do decide to have that change, why not? I think that puts them in a position to to be safe. One of the issues that has come up with transgenders are whether or not they disclose, their birth sex. And I am 100% concerned about that because, they become at risk to improper medical treatment. And, it's vice versa for physicians because they're unable to properly diagnose specific medical conditions associated with conditions relative to transgenders. So it's good for them to be in an atmosphere where they can thrive, where they can do well, where they have the right doctors, where they have access to whatever they would need in order for them to be the best persons, the best athletes, whomever they need to be in order for them to be happy.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me go to one more comment. This one is from, let's see, I'm trying to get this to, okay, this one is from Kendall Colebrook. He says this conversation was the main focus during the Obama administration. Then it took a backseat when Donald Trump was president. Now Joe Biden is the leader that is pushing the agenda again. See the playbook, guys. Do you believe that there is some kind of agenda here? Do you believe that this is something that has that this is a means to an end for a particular grouping? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think that this has become politicized. And reason being is it's a civil rights issue.
Mm-hmm.
President Biden has said it. It's the civil rights war of the 21st century. So clearly, he considers this to be a war. I think it has major repercussions for our society. It also has major repercussions for religion. And, there is no way that there should be new laws or new regulations that infringe on the rights of others or other dynamics socially that's already been associated or have already been grounded within the framework of what society is all about. And so we can't kind of dismiss religion or say the hell with that because we are now into this new era. That is utterly ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
There should be space for everybody. And so I think we have to be responsible with the way that we address this. I definitely think because it has become politicized, it has caused more harm than it has good. We should be at a place where we should be able to, resolve the issues within the social constructs for transgenders without this being something that becomes questionable in terms of whether it's malicious or whether it's done because one political party decides that this is what they're going to push versus another one. So I think we have to be responsible. And if we're talking human rights, then, and that's the basis of transgenders, they say that, they have human rights, then this should not be politicized. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that it's a disservice.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to read one more comment. This one is from my friend, Rafa Delphin, all the way in Boston. Rafa says, trans women and former Olympian Caitlyn Jenner spoke out against trans women athletes competing in women's sports, saying it's not fair for biological women. Trans athletes should stay in their own lane. This is the only way we can all agree that competition will be fair. Thanks for your comments, Rafa. And we also see a comment from Romel that says, Jesus Christ says, no, do not be like the world and don't follow their doctrine. They have a form of godliness, but their way is destruction. Okay. All right. Fascinating conversation. I want to talk about the religious aspect, and I want to read a message that somebody sent to my personal phone, and this is going to lead us into the break, and then we're going to talk about the religious aspect on the other side of the break. Where did it go? This message says, good morning, Michelle. Why do you have this woman on your show with this topic? She is a heathen. Okay, people. I don't know why the man decided to call you a heathen, Rochelle.
Harsh.
Because these are conversations that we need to have. And the implications are impacting religion. And so we have to talk about this. And to stick our head in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist is foolish.
Of course it is.
So let's be adults here. And let's have an adult conversation. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue the show. I'm calling it Stacked Odds. Transgender versus naturally born female athletes. How fair is that? That and more on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Glory 93.9 FM. We're chasing after God's glory.
Ocean blue is the best in seafood, hey, hey. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. We got fish, conch, lobster, shrimp, everything you want. Ocean blue got it. Ocean blue, friendly and clean, best service you ever seen. Ocean blue is the best in seafood, yeah. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. Ocean blue seafood, we are here for you. Ocean blue seafood, no one else will do. Ocean Blue Seafood, located on Bernard Road. Contact us at 393-2160.
Escape from the city life to Bacon Air Beach Resort in Piratesville, Mayaguana. Relax in one of 16 air-conditioned rooms just steps away from the ocean. Enjoy scrumptious dishes in our waterfront dining room. Sip on a tropical cocktail, or if you must, stay connected with wireless internet. Nestled on one of the most beautiful beaches in the Bahamas, Bacon Air Beach Resort offers a unique vacation experience. For reservations, call 339-3726 or 463-0182. For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Youngevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Youngevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guest today is Rochelle Dean. We are talking about stacked odds. Transgender athletes versus naturally born female athletes. Is that fair? And obviously, this conversation goes beyond just athletics, but the athletics are under the spotlight, particularly seeing that the Olympics is fast approaching. And the question is being asked, should transgender athletes be allowed to compete against naturally born female athletes? How is that fair? So I want to read a text. This one says, Michelle, so are men who say they identify as women now qualified to win all of women's scholarships?
Yeah.
Now, see, that's a serious thing.
Yeah.
Because now you going beyond just running a race. Now you're talking about a person's ability to take away a scholarship from somebody because, wow, that's a serious thing, Rochelle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is that actually happening now?
Yeah, that's happening, and that's one of the reasons why there's been so much upheaval, in particularly in the States. So these are girls who have worked hard, and sports is their only way out. And so they're saying now, these individuals, transgenders now transgender women have access to their scholarships, and so there is this is unfair.
Wow, that is serious. Okay, let me go to a couple more comments. So Romel says wrong cannot be right and right cannot be wrong. It will come a time when right will become wrong and wrong will become right. Okay. Siobhan is laughing at the person who say you a heathen. She said, boy, Bahamians don't play. Carolyn says, your guest is very articulate and balanced in her responses. I think so too. I think this is a very balanced conversation. And maybe persons who are transgender would not agree with that. And if you are from that community, we would love you to call into the show. The number is 828-3543. 828-3543 is the number to call. 828-2543 is the text line. 828-2543 is the text line. I have another text that says, what rights does the LGBTQ people have? They choose to go against nature because of sin, lust. They have the same rights as human beings. This is diabolical. It's amazing how we love to go against God's standards to please others. Well, you know, I came across a video of Dr. Joel Wallach talking about the makeup of the brain of persons who are transgender. I wish I had pulled that clip to play in this show today, because one of the things he talked about is that what happens from in the mother's womb, if there aren't sufficient of a particular nutrient, that the child's brain develops differently. And that is what he believes leads to persons becoming transgender, because the brain is made up. It's deep. I really should have pulled that clip to play in the show today. I did not. I didn't think to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the religious aspect, because some people are saying, oh, this is just sin and lust. And for persons within the community, they're saying, what are you talking about? I feel like I was born this way. This is how I have felt since I was a child. So how can you call this sin or lust if this is all that I know to be? What are your views on the religious aspect of this discussion?
I think religion is a part of civil society. It's a part of what makes us who we are. People rely on religious heavily. Religion just didn't pop up. You know, religion has been around from the beginning of time. And for me, I think that when you have individuals now who want to have this change, or transgender say that they are being discriminated against and they want to abolish religion, that becomes offensive, because there isn't anybody who's trying to abolish them. So why would you want to abolish something that is the foundation of who we are as a society, if at the end of the day you've had an identity? If you wish to change that identity, that is also your human right to do so. So why attack religion? It's kind of where they are saying that their rights are more important than everybody else's rights.
Yes.
And so that becomes an issue. In the United States specifically, you know, they didn't want to take this. The position that they're taking, the Equality Act has come up, but there's also been amendments. And we've seen where there were states that began to sign the amendments. They would prefer to make amendments to the Civil Rights Act versus, you know, just starting all over again, because I think they recognize that it will impact religion. And that is where there is a level of unfairness. They are talking about their rights being better, and everybody else's is less than. So it's kind of like the majority against the minority. And that is 100% erroneous. When we look at religion is the basis of why they should be included. It's the baseline of why there is inclusion for these people. So the nerve
Explain
of them,
that, please. Explain that.
Religion is all inclusive. God, and if we look at religion across the board, religion speaks to being accepting, showing love, you know, and this is what Jesus spoke about. And we're not only talking about Jesus because there are different aspects of Jesus, but the idea is that it's universal. There is no separation in religion.
But I could hear the man that called you a heathen saying, but it also speaks to judgment.
But still, it does not discriminate. At the end of the day, the Bible, even though we speak about what is wrong, because if I lie, I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If I steal, I am wrong.
Yep.
If I fornicate, I am wrong. So it's no different. The point is it's still all inclusive. That means that it's accepting. I accept you for who you are. You are wrong. I want you to turn. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And so at the end of the day, it is the basis of what society represents.
Wow, that is powerful. What is the solution to all of this? What does your organization hope to achieve at the end of the day?
At the end of the day, we want there to be a clear understanding that women are who they are based on their sex. And so policies and any laws should be, the foundation of these laws and policies should be based on the idea that women are who they are on the basis of sex. So language has to be changed to make sure that women are protected straight across the bat. I mean, there's no other explanation. When it comes to framing anything, it should be based on women being who they are based on sex. And of course, that's one of the reasons why the basis of the WHRC Declaration is actually the CEDAW Convention, which also lays it out very clear.
Okay. And what efforts are being done at a local level to try to elevate this conversation and welcome everybody to the table to have this conversation? When I say everybody, I'm talking about persons who are perhaps transgender, who are from that community, who are feeling disenfranchised, whether it's in sports or something else. What is happening to elevate this conversation to more of a national level?
One thing that WHRC is doing right now, because of course, anytime you look at any campaign, you have to determine how effective it will be in the country. So, I did the research. I, crossed all my T's and dotted my I's, and I recognized that the way that we can begin to have that cultural shift is to educate people. So we have, we're doing master classes where we are framing the narrative so people can have a clear view of what it is versus what it is not. I think that in doing that, then we are saying that we're giving leeway to the LGBTQ community to kind of set their own standard of how they want to live their lives. They can't kind of try to misconstrue what's already what's already been established for women to their benefit. That doesn't help them. What they need to do is they need to do the research, do the work, read the documents, read the conventions, and determine how best they can live their best lives while complying with what's already the basis of the protection for women.
So in other words, I'm paraphrasing here. Don't jump on the bandwagon of what has already been established. But then they will argue, why not? I am a woman. This is what they will argue. So why should those rights not apply to me?
I think for the most part, they're not. They are trying to erase. They're trying to erase what's already established, or they're selling, I have human rights, and we're not objecting to that.
Mm-hmm.
You do have human rights. Everybody, as soon as you're born, you have human rights.
Right.
You also have civil liberties. You have freedoms, correct? But this is civil rights. This is where the government now comes in and establishes laws to make sure that individuals are protected, inclusive of transgenders. So at the end of the day, the government is now establishing laws from a civil rights perspective to protect, right? And so at this point in time, women need to be protected.
Okay. I want to read a couple comments here. So Romel says, a woman and a man can have a child, but a man and a man cannot. It's called abomination. They're trying to change the original form of God. And I think we have a caller on the line. We do. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, good morning, Ms. Malcolm.
Good morning.
How you doing? And your guest? Yeah, I'm very impressed with this young lady. She's absolutely correct. I share her ideas, but I just wanted to put this in. This is I sent you something a month ago about the scientific symposium. They have actually changed the definition for what is a female. I don't know if you read it, but they actually saying now anyone who declares themselves or sees himself psychologically as a female is a female. And so we know that we all being naive, and we know that this is a part of the globalist transhumanistic agenda, and it doesn't have to be, we all are underread in certain disciplines, but this is what it is. And I just wanted to share that. This is a part about depopulation and transhumanism. All right, have a good day.
All right, thank you for calling 52. That's an interesting perspective. It's just about depopulation. Well, obviously, at least for now, because I see them doing all kinds of experiments where they're growing animals in artificial wombs.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, a trans woman cannot have a child naturally. And, that is one of the main things that makes a woman is the word woman comes from wombed man.
Mm-hmm.
So she is but the Bible talks about man meaning mankind. And then it says male and female, we created them. So the female is a wombed man, a man with a womb. When I say man, mankind. So and I'm not saying that a woman who's had a hysterectomy is no longer a woman. That's not what I'm saying. But creation, biology of our bodies are created to perform certain functions. And a female was born with a womb to perform a function. And that function is to bear children. And so this is how you know the main difference between who should be or who is, according to biology, classified as a woman and who is classified as a man. Now, clearly there is an agenda to change that. Mm-hmm. I saw a couple of years ago, I thought it was just so ridiculous that there was this couple. The husband in this marriage was a woman who transitioned into a man. And the wife was a man who transitioned to become a woman. And the woman in this marriage became pregnant. The man, in this marriage became pregnant. The husband became pregnant. Mm. And so they put the headline out there, the world's first pregnant man. You cannot be serious. Because the mere fact that human being is pregnant means that they aren't a man. And we really need to stop. I don't even know how to describe this madness that's going on in the world today, where we are living in a pretend world. Many children grow up with imaginary friends, and children are known to have these very vivid imaginations. They live in a pretend world. And I honestly think that we're coming to the place where we expect the whole world to go back to childhood and pretend like we're living in this imaginary friend world where we can pretend that this is what it is, and that's what it is. How can you tell me that this is the world's first pregnant man? Then clearly that person is not a man. I asked this before, where do you draw the line?
Where is the level of integrity?
Where is the level of common sense? Mm-hmm. But go ahead, finish your point. Your point.
Where is the level of integrity for medical professionals? Because, for those two words, those two things just don't even apply to each other. The world's first pregnant man.
Exactly.
And when we look at the economics we can look at the economics as well as the health aspect of it. A male who decides to have a uterus transplant for whatever reason, because they have this uteruses now, and they have a baby. That child has risks of so many medical conditions. It is utterly ridiculous. It is a disservice to what childbearing is about and what a child deserves. A child does not deserve to be born with so many risks and, let's see what's going to happen. Let's see. Let's monitor it. That is ridiculous.
Do you think we're living in an era where we are just a whole bunch of lab rats? Where, there's this huge experiment on what it means to be human even? Do you think we're if not there, heading towards that era where we are all walking around as lab rats?
I think we're headed to we're heading in the direction where people are not going to question things that happen. Things are going to start to manifest, and we won't question them. They're just going to be considered, oh, that's just modern science, or
the new norm.
Yeah, or people will be oblivious to it.
And if you dare speak out and say this is wrong, then you are
then you're a bigot. You're the meanie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're not accepting.
Yeah, correct.
Wow. What a time. Okay, let me read a couple comments. So Bertha says, Michelle, man, this conversation is worse than the PLP and F&M. The LGBT don't see anything wrong with their lifestyle. At least some F&Ms could see and say ministers doing the country and its people wrong. No, this does go very, very deep. Very, very deep. Carolyn says, every time they try to pass the women's rights bill, the transgenders jump on board, causing women to remain disadvantaged. Well, if that is the case, then women need to stand up.
Michelle, I think we need to also clarify the fact that WHRC is not anti-lesbians, because we are fighting for women's rights. That's inclusive of lesbians as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. One more comment, although I don't think I understand what you're trying to say, 52. 52 says, what's the comparison? I see none. I love natural food, etc. So everything else. Okay, so what you're trying to say? That there is no comparison between a transgender woman and a naturally born female? Is that what you're trying to say, 52? Okay. So, wow, time is just about gone. What would you like to see we women do? When I say women, I'm talking about naturally born females. What should we be doing to try to ensure that we are not being disadvantaged in this whole thing? What can we on a grassroots level do?
I think one of the things that I would want is for Bahamian women to support the WHRC Bahamas. And you can do that by signing the declaration. There's actually a website. And, there's a summary of the declaration. I encourage you to read it and also sign the declaration in support of what's being done. We also have master classes that I give to disseminate this information for clarity. So it's not anti anybody. It's just bringing some clarity to the narrative. And I think that will allow for women, again, to now find innovative ways to continue the development of women, which is the basis of what CEDAW or the framework of CEDAW. So that's very important. So if women would sign the declaration, that would be wonderful, as well as to reach out to me. You can actually go on the women's, declaration.com, and you can actually send an email to me, and, we can kind of discuss how, we can go forward in terms of any partnerships, or if you would like your organization to, have the complete the masterclass. That's also something that we would be prepared to do as well.
And so give us the website again and any contact numbers.
So the website is www.womensdeclaration.com. So you put that in, you should be able to find us, and you can sign the declaration. I always encourage people to do the masterclass first and then sign the declaration after, because if you actually do the masterclass, then you will have full clarity, and then you can kind of make your decision as to whether you would sign it. If you trust what I'm saying, then by all means sign it, but I prefer people to do the masterclass.
And what are some of the things that masterclass covers?
We talk about gender justice, and the different gender roles and so forth. So it brings clarity in terms of the differentiations between gender equality and really and truly where we are in terms of the educational aspect of it, as it relates to the roles in relative to social media, because there's a lot of different narratives as it relates to social media, and also it frames human rights versus women's rights.
Okay, and what message would you give to the transgender person listening to this show today and thinking, that, this conversation may have set back their push to equality?
I think I'd want to say to transgenders, and I think I've kind of made it clear during CSW 65. I think I would say to them that there hasn't been any pushback for me. I think they have advanced, and there was no basis of them being advancing, because they were advancing pretty much on nothing. And so if you want to advance properly, or if you do want to actually advance, then you should actually start to develop a framework as to what you want. You can't kind of decide that you're going to use CEDAW or even human rights, because human rights are still there is an element of them being governed by civil rights, and so there isn't anyone taking away their civil liberties. They have freedoms, and so within those freedoms, then you should frame the narrative for your group of individuals. And so when that happens, then they have a seat at the table. And so that's not excluding them. That's making them responsible and accountable for who they want to be within society.
Powerful stuff. Wow. Rochelle, thank you so much for reaching out to me and asking me to consider doing this show. I thought it was a very enlightening conversation. And I do appreciate you coming forth with it. I want to read one more comment, and then we're going to get our final thoughts of the day. Terry says, it's called hedonism. We need a new revolution of the collective mind. Black has become white. Very interesting. I dare say that this world in which we are living must be very confusing for children, especially. Let's face it, some adults are confused. We can't put this all together and make sense of it, much less a child. And so I think that we have to come to the place where we make this make sense and call a spade, and call out, people for trying to bully us into accepting what we do not wish to accept. Because you can't call me a bully. You can't call me bigoted if you are not open to the possibility that I may not agree with your point of view. I think we have to get to the place where we agree to disagree on some things, because there will never, I think, be a time when, we bring everybody together on the same page, particularly on this issue. I just think that we need to just be allowed to call a spade as we see it, in the same way that you are asking for the exact same thing, to be able to speak your truth. I think it is disingenuous for you to try to shut down anyone who expresses something that you don't necessarily agree with. And so I think we need to be very, very careful when it comes to that, and allowing everybody to be able to feel comfortable in speaking their truth, whether or not we are in agreement with what that truth is. Your final thoughts on this subject before we get out of here, Rochelle?
For the most part, I think that that's imperative, because I think that once that happens, then the position of transgenders will be something that we all kind of know. We know where they stand. It's kind of where it's just, there's pushback, but really and truly, what are we really pushing against? Because there's nothing really substantiated. Most countries, or lots of countries, that actually have gender laws related to transgenders. One of the most interesting ones is Japan's. Japan's transgender laws are conducive to every specific case. So it's case by case, which is different versus other countries that actually just have passed gender laws in terms of allowing people to self-ID and have the change and so forth. And one of those things would be to actually, they would have to go through psychiatric treatment and all of the sex change and so forth. So I think outside of that, I think from a socialistic standpoint or from the social aspect of it, I think we need to know their position, and then there will be room for them. But to attack everything else that's already been established, or to suggest that their human rights are being violated, that's not fair, and that's untrue.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rochelle. I thought you were a great guest, brought some good information. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you as well.
All right, guys, that's my time. Got to get out of here. It's 1 o'clock. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll have more riveting conversations throughout the week, so be sure to tune in tomorrow, same time, same place. See you then.